keep on admitting people. Welcome to the second edition of the Ben webinar. What we're trying to do over the course of this year is to develop a series of webinars, hopefully informative ones for our portfolio companies. We're working on a variety of topics, all of them sort of entrepreneur centric. And so hopefully, every month or so, you'll be seeing a different topic and encourage anybody to join in. We're really trying to find intriguing topics and ones that have real utility. So thanks for joining in today on a really tough weather day. Just a couple of guidelines here. I believe, and Kate's Kate, my co-host, she helped me set up this meeting. We are recording this. So, whatever you say, be careful because it'll go down in posterity. But one of the reasons for recording it will be that it will be archived eventually on our website. And so it will be a resource for, future people, yourselves or others to kind of, go in and explore this topic. This could be pretty interactive. I suggest at this point that maybe, we use the chat room for interacting. Kate and I can monitor the chat room if you have questions. So we'll try to either feather in questions as Marcia talks or wait to the end. We'll figure, we can just gauge the flow of the meeting. So with all that as an introduction, let me just introduce Marcia O'Connor. Marcia founded and heads up the O'Connor Group. Her coworker Megan is here as well. We'll be assisting probably on some of the presentation and Q&A as well. The topic for this morning, when I was thinking about young companies, we always talk about people being the greatest asset of companies. And yet, when I see young companies, one of the last things they attend to is really the HR function. I mean, young companies don't have the ability and money to really do HR the way a large company can do it. And so I was talking to Marcia and said, this is a fascinating topic. What is sort of the evolution of an HR function, in a company going from sort of startup to the point where they are able to develop that competency? So Marcia agreed that she's going to kind of walk us through the steps it takes in that evolutionary pathway. And I'll now just let Marcia take it from here. And we'll go and hopefully have some great questions at the end. So Marcia, if you're interested, I'll let you take the screen and dive right in.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that kind introduction, and good morning, everybody. I am here along with Megan. Megan is actually going to be sharing the slides I have for today. I do like to have it very interactive. I want you to ask questions on all too, feel very comfortable, and also feel comfortable showing your faces today too, because I think it makes people ask more questions and feel more. Look at that, O'Neill just put it right back on. So I think that's great, and good morning. But I really want to make sure that we answer a lot of your questions today too, because it's not easy. I know starting a business is hard enough as it is, but basically asking these kind of questions, like when is it too soon, or am I spending too much, or where do I go to? These are questions all CEOs constantly ask. I ask that all the time. It took me about almost 7 years before I felt as if I had a really good structure of everything I was doing, and I had to fall down a few times too. So my job is to hopefully make it less times you're falling down, especially around the HR and the recruiting side of the house. So with that, I'm going to have Megan start sharing our slides.
Let's do it. All right.
That's her beautiful daughter.
Yeah. All right. So how's that look for everybody? Pretty good?
Yes. Yep. Okay.
You want me to use PowerPoint instead, Marcia? Is that easier?
I think so. Yeah.
Let me switch. I have it open in there too. So just give me 1 second here.
Yeah. I think PowerPoint pulls up the whole screen instead.
Yep.
And what we did here, guys, is to let you know, we put in the basics of what we decided that we think you should know, but there's a lot more that goes into it. That would probably take a full day conversation, and we don't have that. So I'm trying to give you the tidbits of basically what to look for, what to hear, what to do and all. So that is why we put this together for you today, okay? So, all right. What every leader should know. Objectives today. So this is what we're going to try to get out of today's conversation. We're going to learn the main factors and time frame of building an HR infrastructure. We're going to understand the design and planning of an HR and recruiting strategy. understanding the vendors associated with your HR infrastructure, that's really important, and the decision-making process of staffing your team, and why that's so important to begin that actually now. But we'll go through that. Okay, next page. This is a great quote. Passion must start at the top and infuse the corporate culture. Otherwise, talent management processes can easily deteriorate into bureaucratic routines. And I can't stress that enough, but the passion really starts with you as the leader, and it trickles all the way down to the janitor, the receptionist, whomever, and all too, but it's really up to you to make this passion to start off with your company that way. Next page. Okay, so every single night, the company's most precious asset leaves the building. How does a startup with limited resources ensure that people will return? So more and more startups are realizing the positive impact of the company's success when HR joins the organization, which are a positive culture, coaching, guidance to senior management, communications with investors, total rewards philosophy, attracting, retaining, rewarding, developing talent programs. That is all around HR. And a lot of times people look at it, sometimes I've been told it's fluff. Well, I can tell you it's not fluff. When you see basically your people is usually one of the top three largest numbers on your income statement, you really want to put a lot of time and attention to them. And we're going to walk through how to do that. Next page. Okay, so this is basically all the stages. There's stage 1, there's stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. We're going to go through each of these in more detail, but that just gives you an idea of what we're going to be going through. And it really comes down to how many employees that you have. But to me, people say, you know, I get calls from people that are either 5 employees, 10 employees, sometimes 50 employees. But I can tell you, it's never too soon to be thinking about this. I've gone into clients. One of my clients was Community, and it was just Oz and Michael and myself and one of my colleagues. And we went in there, they had zero structure whatsoever. They knew that they were in funding mode, and they were just getting their first Series A financing. And they said, well, help us put together an HR strategy and a recruiting strategy. And that was when they were only 2 people. And now, you know, they actually have a senior VP of HR. They actually have about 80 some people. They're doing great. We do still a lot of work with them and all too, but we're not hand holding them like we did when we first started. So let's go into this in more detail. Stage 1 for the entrepreneur. All right. Stage 1. So typically it's around employees 1 to 5. And the benefits, so people all say, I've heard this before, hey, give this person benefits. Well, unfortunately, how the benefit system is structured, you need to have at least 2 employees to be using benefits for it to be worthwhile for you. Sometimes you can go through a chamber of commerce. I know Brody's on here too, and he has a lot of experience in that area. Some chambers of commerce have really good benefit programs to go into. And so if you're not involved with the chamber of commerce, I highly recommend doing that because they give you a lot of benefits to start off with as well. But you want to make sure you have at least 2 employees to do that. And it can be the CEO, but it has to be somebody else on your team. So make sure you have that. Now, when you start your benefits, the rule of thumb is this. You can always add, but you can't take away. And that is a very important statement because a lot of times when we start with everybody and they just got that financing and they think we can do so much with it, what they forget to do is that money goes through fingertips faster basically than jello flying from a wall, okay? And you want to be really careful with that, how much money that you're spending at your benefits. There are great programs out there, Independence Blue Cross, United Healthcare. You can do a gold plan, you can do a platinum plan. Basically, it comes down to cost. And what you really want to do is have that set up from day one of what you want to have in regards to your benefits and your vacation and all too. It sounds like you'll never get there, but the sooner you put that down in paper, the better off you're going to be, okay? But benefits, you start with 2 employees. Outsourcing, it depends. It really depends upon total employees in the first year because obviously you're watching your funds. You're watching basically how much money you have. And so you want to figure out what you need, what you don't need. And I gotta tell you, many times I know that a lot of my CEOs will say, well, I've got these 3 people that I really think would be great to start off as my first 3 employees. And they came from the really large, we'll just say GSK or whatever, and all too. And so we want to hire them immediately. And that's where I usually push back. I'll push back. I'll say, listen, Are they ready to roll up their sleeves and get dirty? And what happens sometimes is that you get so used to working into that higher corporate world, you don't realize that now you're going into a job where you're going to wash dishes, where you're going to basically fill the copier. You're going to basically be doing these things that you typically weren't used to doing because you had somebody else do. And you have to be very careful about that too, because I've seen a lot of people put a lot of money into these people that they have to have because they're the best person for the job. And they won't let us look anywhere else because they have their mind set on that. And I gotta tell you, there's about 70% of the time within 9 months, that person is no longer with that firm because that person just did not basically understand what that meant to roll up that sleeves. And unfortunately, they had a package to leave. So not only are you paying a package to bring them on board, you're giving them a package basically to leave. And a lot of people also do these agreements. Now, there's offer letters and there's agreements. Agreements are binded by law. And what you want to make sure is that those agreements are very clearly stated about what they get and then what you get. But a lot of times people are also putting into agreements basically, hey, if I'm let go within 6 months, you're still going to pay me for my full salary for a year. And no matter how bad a company is, if they leave and you still don't have money, you are still binded by that. So you need to be very, very careful about that. Okay. So in regards to outsourcing, just make sure that you're outsourcing the areas that you definitely think you need in regards to strategy, in regards to just business development, and also figuring out those areas. And you know what? There are so many wonderful areas. Like Ben Franklin is a great group to be a mentor for all of you to talk about, hey, I'm here. What about this? What about that? There's so many people that want to help you too because they really want to get you off the ground and started. So feel free to reach out to them at any time because they know so many people and they're wonderful networkers themselves. Okay. I have a question. When it is two employees, can both of them be founders and primary shareholders, or do they need to be employees? That's a great question. They have to be a W-2 employee, basically. So if you label yourself as a W-2, basically you can do that. But if you don't and you're just a shareholder, then you're not. I hope that makes sense. So once you label them as a W-2, yeah, one's a shareholder. I'm pretty sure they have to both be W-2s. Okay, so just a heads up. A good question, Caroline. Thank you for asking that. And then in regards to the stage one, again, needs, your compliance, your employee files, your templates, your benefits map, your payroll provider, your core values, your mission. Now, this is what happens a lot of times. When we start this area, the paperwork gets overwhelming. And I can't stress to you enough, there are wonderful HRIS systems out there that are not very expensive. And you really make sure that you have something solid to start with so that when you're growing, and if your mind is thinking 25 employees within a year, you definitely want to spend the time on getting an HRIS system to get that moving for you. Because what's going to happen is if people are all over the place, this will send basically an onboarding package to them electronically. They fill everything out online. Everything basically is signed off. So you actually have a trail and a record. If you do everything by paper, what happens? I've seen this all the time. Papers get all over the place and all too. Your I-9s are everywhere. All these federal forms have to be in a spot where you can find them easily, especially if you get audited. And keep in mind, the government's looking for money right now. So they are auditing a lot of these companies right now because they realize that people don't have really good structure and policies in place. So let me just go to the chat really fast because I'm seeing a lot of messages pop up here. Any suggested for HR systems? We actually have a few. It really depends upon what you want to get out of it. You know, I have a community actually started with Cornerstone. And the main reason why is because they do a lot of training with the lab and CGMP. And that actually tracks all that training and keeps track of it for them. So it just depends upon what you want. We use Paylocity because it ties in with payroll. So it's like two systems into one. You really have to figure out what you'd want to do with all that. And Carolyn has track1099.com was wonderful. There are so many great systems out there, guys, just to let you know. But when you have a new hire, you have a lot of forms that have to be completed, and they have to be in certain areas. And once you have benefits, you have to keep those forms in place as well. And you have to keep them actually separate from the employee files. So you have to be very careful. And if you have them in your place, you have to have them locked up as well. So all these crazy things that you didn't think about as CEO, but that is one of the things we want to make sure that you are aware of. Gusto, yeah, I'm seeing Gusto. Gusto out there is a great program as well. So thank you, Chris, for offering that. And also, Daniel wrote, we are planning a transition from the owners doing everything to parsing out some of the functions, primarily software development, QA, QC. Should we consider contracting out or hiring employees? To be honest with you, QA is really difficult to find and to find really good people. You could always look into basically doing a temp to perm kind of a deal instead. So because like I said, they are so hard to find. And usually when you do a temp to perm, they have a much stronger database instead of you trying to find them on your own, because it's going to take you a long while to find that person. So what you could do as a clause that you actually can hire that person after 6 months and see if it works that way. So everything's negotiable in the contracts, guys, when you're working with temp to perm. Hope that helps, Daniel. And what was the name of that database? What's database? Oh, you're welcome. And which database, Caroline? The one for Paylocity? Or was it a different one we're talking about? I apologize.
The temp to perm, like who's the best to use?
Oh, temp to perm, there's a variety of them out there. There's Joule Systems, there is Aerotech. They're probably the best that have the best databases for you to basically look into. There are others. There are temp agencies, they say they do it, but keep in mind, QA is a very, very specialized area for the right people. And I would say Joule, Joule, and Aerotech are probably going to be two in the area that you're going to get probably the bang for your buck. And they do a lot of temp to perm. So
yeah.
What do you mean by temp to perm? So temp to perm meaning you're paying somebody as basically as an interim help. And then basically you can actually have in that clause after 6 months, if you like this person, you can bring them on board and hire them full time. Now, there's usually a conversion fee in there, but that is all negotiable from day one. So you want to make sure that that is, you have that conversation before you sign that line. But that's the temp to perm. So perm meaning you'll bring them on as a W-2 as an employee of yours. But you first start off as a contractor and you would pay that company that's basically paying the person the salary. I hope that makes sense too. Go ahead, Megan. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just thinking about buyer bridges is a good one too for quality people. So I mean, it would depend on the industry, like depend on the type of business that you have. But what I think that would be really helpful is after this, we can send you guys a vendor list of all of our favorites in each area, just to kind of give in with a little bit of insight on each one. Hopefully that will be helpful.
Yeah, it's there's so much stuff out there too, to be honest with you. But my goal is to making sure, to make sure that you don't spend too much money out there. I think what happens is, especially when people get funding, they get Series A or Series B, they say, oh, let's go for it. Let's hire this. Let's get this moving. Let's get the best office. Let's get all this stuff, and that is great. But what happens is that money goes really fast if you're bringing in high quality talent, if you're getting really good lab equipment and all too. So my job is to make sure that you're really cautious about that and you have everything in the place to get the basics down. So when you think stage one, you're thinking basics, you're thinking a handbook. And why is it so important to have a handbook? Just even the most basic handbook out there is because what happens when you have employees, the first place they're going to go to is that handbook. Well, wait a minute, you had said that I get a bonus, but you basically said a bonus. Well, let's look into the handbook. What did that handbook say about that bonus? Did we have to pay it out if we had a bad year versus a good year? How about vacation? Well, you told me I had this much vacation. Well, this is my holidays. Well, everything is lined out in that handbook. And so to me, it's really important to have just a very basic handbook. And the nice thing about it is too, you want to make sure people sign off on that handbook, because if something ever happens and you get sued and basically an employment attorney comes in, the first place they're going to look is see whether or not that they had a handbook. And then number two is whether they signed off if they had that handbook, to make sure that they actually read all that, because that handbook protects you. So you want to make sure you do spend a lot of time putting one together and to get that moving. But once it's in, it's in. You can update it every year. You can actually tie it to your HRIS system too, so that when someone's starting on board, basically it's all electronic, they can see it on there and then they can sign off electronically. So everything is in one spot for that employee. It just helps on so many levels, okay? Another option is, go ahead.
Marsha, I was just going to say for the handbook, you can change that at any point too. So even if you start with a really basic handbook and just have, like Marsha said, have something to protect you, if you want to make changes to that, you can make discretionary changes at any point. So you're not stuck to it. Getting it in as soon as possible, those, the core values and the mission, I know Marsha will go into that. Those are able to be modified at any point. So always keep that in mind. So what you're doing now doesn't have to be forever.
That is so true. So we actually update ours probably twice a year, our handbook. And, I've been around for 14 years and I still update the handbook. And to be honest with you, every year something pops up that you need to be aware of. Like if you have cell phones and if people are traveling, with their cell phones and all too, what that means, what you're liable for. And just want to make sure that everything is very clear behind all that. Cybersecurity, ethics, all that stuff. Even if someone lies and you catch them, having that in your handbook about that too. So it's an automatic, you can let somebody go without any retaliation and all too. So just make sure you have a handbook. If I say anything today, it's a handbook. And then a PEO is also a professional employer association. And it's basically, it's an outsourcing group that really works a lot of times with companies, probably 1 to 5, and they have the payroll, they have the benefits, they have everything. It's fairly inexpensive and all too. It's a really good option if you're not going to grow more than 20 people, and it definitely will save you money and time and all too. The thing is, you probably won't. It depends who you have and all. There are big groups, there are small groups out there. Like Insperity is a big group out there too. You just want to make sure that you have your consistency in regards to the person that you're talking to, because you're going to share a lot of information with that person. And you want to make sure that when you're calling, they understand who you're talking about and what you're doing. If you're going to be heading more than 5 employees or more than 10 employees, you want to make sure that you probably look at, I guess, outsource HR, or you could also do hiring somebody too. But I wouldn't hire. Typically, my rule of thumb is hiring an HR person when they're like 50 employees. Okay. All right. Any questions on stage 1? All right.
Marsha, do you want to just touch on, thinking about from a compliance standpoint, like employee files, just thinking about the things that should be on file, I should say must be on file.
Yeah, well, definitely is your I-9. Your I-9 is the form that basically proves to everybody in regards to, oh, that's great. So AXI said uses ADP for 500K. Yeah, that's awesome.
So we saved a fortune with ADP. I mean, we have 140 employees, very large payroll, and our benefits got expensive individually buying them. It might have had something to do with, our breakdown, the fact that we were all old. But moving to ADP saved us quite a bit and allowed us to upgrade and that was a PEO example of a larger company.
They are great. Well, ADP also has a really good system for their payroll too. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not great. We don't love it, but we like the benefits saving. The payroll has been worse. I don't want to say it. Yeah, no, we have not had a good experience with their payroll. They have messed up payroll for many an employee, and we're constantly fixing things. So,
well, they do a phenomenal job of selling. So I can tell you.
Oh yeah, their sales pitch is phenomenal.
Yes, it is. And we go into a lot of places that are using ADP. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they buy the whole package and they don't really use the whole package because it's been complicated to basically use because it is a good program. But ironically enough, it does fit what you need. I think the hardest part is figuring out, for the benefit side too, just to make sure that you have the benefits that are basically appeasing your type of person and for recruiting purposes and all too, because I'm starting to see a lot more people put platinum plans in place. And platinum, as you know, is the most expensive feature. It goes platinum, guys, gold, and silver, and there's a bronze one too. But if you're really, I don't know if you're in the Philadelphia marketplace and all too, but
Philadelphia, New Hampshire, and Florida.
Okay, yeah. So you're starting to see it now. The war for talent is just beginning because everybody wants to be here in the Philadelphia marketplace with the Celgene, therapy initiative going on. And so I just had a call before this where space, all in even Philadelphia, it's really hard to find, but they're converting a lot more buildings into lab space and all too. So that just means more employees that you're going to want for all that. So to me, I would say try to get your benefits program rich, but not too rich where it's going to make you go broke and all too, because it's definitely going to be an avenue to try to keep employees down the road. So
We
just
did a
something to think into.
7-year upgrade. So when we were small, we didn't do 401k match. We added it, we increased it. Now we match 5%. So we've just, we've done is every year we've incrementally improved things. And it also has a very positive effect because those employees who are loyal to you see those incremental changes. And going for a very high deductible plan where we pay 100% of the deductible turned out to be less expensive, and our employees love it because they don't have a single out-of-pocket cost. So for us, that worked out well. It might not for every company.
Exactly. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And you just mentioned it too. So in regards to, like, you can increase your benefits over the years depending on how well you're doing. And you don't have to start off that way with the platinum of everything and all these holidays and all too. But if the better you become, the more revenue that you're making, you can actually add on a lot more to that. So keep that in mind. People forget that you can change that at any time. And so I think it's really important that you realize that. And but great bringing those ideas up. And what's your first name? You have AXI. I can't hear you. Sorry.
Angelique Irvin. I'm the CEO of Clearalign.
Oh, great. Thanks, Angelique. I love sharing your stuff there. Appreciate that very much. No, it's helpful because I think people need to hear what's going on out there, what you can't do.
We were using a broker and we just were not able to get the rates we needed with the broker. And so we had to go to a PEO company, and we looked at 5 top ones. And you're right. Some of the packages, like we use the performance appraisal process they use, but their actual HR specialists are not as good as my HR generalists. So we have not gotten a lot of help from them on the HR end. However, I think if we were a smaller company and we actually needed them, they're supposedly going to rewrite your employee manual. They never did that for us. It's been 2 years. So some of their services just don't quite deliver.
Yeah, we've heard that too. But for the most part, they're like a Band-Aid holding things together right now and keeping you moving and all too.
Yeah,
so.
and they're a lot less expensive, which was what we needed.
Yep. ADP is actually one of the ones that are out there. There are others too.
What other ones? We're going to look at other ones this year. What other ones do you recommend for the larger companies other than ADP?
Paylocity. I tell you, I think they've been great. The customer
they
service
have benefits. They do
have a benefit section.
Okay, so great.
They don't do that piece of it. I know what you're talking about. They actually tie in with companies and all too. It's very
so they don't actually buy in bulk.
No.
The benefits. Yeah. See, that's the only way we've been able to do it, tying in other companies, because of our age demographics has not worked.
Yeah, your PE is probably going to be your best fit right now. There probably isn't too many other tools out there that offer.
Are there any other PEOs that you know of in this area that are good other than ADP?
Insperity is actually not so bad.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them or not too.
Yes, I have. I'm actually part of their women's group, which is nice.
And just a suggestion in terms of the timing, this morning, would it be possible if there are some really granular questions, Marsha, did you take that off? Is it good to take that offline?
Absolutely. Totally. There's so much stuff we could be talking about today, guys. So we're only on stage 1. So let's move on this. Absolutely. Thank you, Angelique. That was great.
Angelique, we can also poll our HR team and have their advice too, and I'll send it out to everybody.
Thanks, Bernie.
Marsh, are you ready for me to?
Yes, moving on. Thank you, Mark. Stage 2, innovation. Okay, so basically, less than 10 employees, benefits, need a strong plan, outsourcing. Start thinking of full-time HR around 25. I like doing 50 as well, but I have a lot of my clients that are already talking at it about 25 employees. And I think it's because they're going through strategy. They're going through moving things forward. They want that person at their side to help them to really build it and to grow it. It's not just somebody pushing the papers for benefits and all too. It's somebody who really understands strategy to help grow the company with them. So that's why I'm starting to hear a lot more of that when they hit around 25 employees. The needs basically, extend compliance, employee files, templates, benefits, payroll provider, employee handbook, core values, job descriptions and all too, and putting all that in play, as well as, believe it or not, banding. And banding has to do with your salaries and all too. Because what you don't want to do is get too crazy out there and you have your salary bands all over the place. So you want to make sure that your job descriptions fit with your salaries and your banding and all too, so that when people get promoted, it goes in line with those titles as well as salary. And you want to make sure that your HR person really understands that too. There are compensation consultants that are out there. You can definitely bring somebody in to help you put that in place. I think when you're around 25 employees, you should have some kind of salary banding and all too, because the more you hire and all, the more job descriptions get in line, it gets more complicated in regards to salaries and bonuses and all too. So having a structure behind all that. So like, for example, you're coming in at this level and you're going to be given this bonus, 15%. You come in at this level and then basically your bonus is going to be at 20%. You're going to come in at this level. And then if you get promoted those levels, you're basically, okay, now you're targeted basically from the low salary to a high salary, and here's your bonus structure. So that pops up, and that structure is really going to help you. So when you hit, over 100 employees and all too, you have that structure in front of you. It's going to be much more helpful when you do bonuses, when you do increases and all too, okay? Core values are also really important. People always ask me, when do we start doing core values? To be honest with you, I always say 5 employees or more. And the idea is behind that is figuring out, why are you here? And what attracted you to come here? And figuring out what words really describe us as a company. And then you take those words, make sure everybody's on the same page with those words, and really live by those words. So your recruiting has to be around them. Your promotions have to be around them. Everything you do is around your core values. And if you haven't read Jim Collins, he has another new book, B2 2.0. It's an amazing book, but he really talks about the core values out there too. It's very important that you put those core values in play. We only have 4 for my company. You know why? Because people remember them, they memorize them, they know them, and they live them. I have a client that has 25 core values. And to be honest with you, I've told him a million times, I think it's too many, and he disagrees. But if you stop somebody in the hallway and say, hey, what are those 25 core values? They're going to probably give me 7. So we want to make sure it's very memorable too. Okay.
Yeah. When we hire and fire to our core values. And I think that's like always important to think about that, when you're bringing people on, do these people really embody what we want the vision of the organization to be? So thinking about, how you can bring on people that really match what you're looking for and what you're envisioning for your business that you're building.
So true. And so now you're going to an organizational chart. You're basically, why is that so important? So to me, an organizational chart is almost like an accountability chart. And sometimes when you as the CEO look at that and write down basically all the hats that you are wearing, you're going to realize, oh my gosh, not only am I CEO, but apparently I'm the CFO, and apparently I am also the COO, and I'm also apparently the marketing guy. And so what you want to do is basically saying, okay, I can't be wearing all 4 hats. My goal is to have 1 hat. And then when you see that organizational chart, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to need a CFO. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this. And have a time frame in there and all too, because when you write it down, it's just more, it's easy to see what you need, where you're going. And basically it does happen when you start writing things down instead of having in the air. Because when I ask people about an organizational chart, so many people don't have one. And trust me, once you start writing one down and figuring those pieces of what you are missing, and then having a timeline behind of when that person's going to be on board, it actually starts coming together quite nicely. PTO. So when I say PTO, people also have right now vacation time and sick time. I highly recommend putting everything into a PTO status and all too, because let's get real. You have sick time. There are people that like taking all that sick time. And then there's some great employees that take 0 sick time. So to me, I don't always think it's fair. So I always say, let's put everything into a PTO, one number that's going to fit everybody. And from what I'm seeing out there right now, I would say the norm is between like 3 to 4 weeks, starting out off the gate. And then basically after like 5 years, they'll switch it to like 5 weeks of PTO. And I'm also hearing right now, we just did a benefits survey in this area for life sciences. I would say the majority of them are also giving off between Christmas and New Year's. Some of them have written it part of policy. Some basically are still skeptical to doing that. I would say for a recruiting tool, definitely put that in there if that's going to be your norm. okay? Because people are actually sort of expecting that now because so many people just shut down between that time frame. Onboarding plan. Onboarding plan should be very specific too. And you get to a point where you're starting to hire more and more people, whether it be that 1 day a month or 2 days a month kind of a deal, and really spend the time figuring out that timeline. At what 8 o'clock, what happens? 9 o'clock, what happens? 10 o'clock, what happens? And Megan basically handles a lot of our onboarding for my team. And so for a full week to 2 weeks, they actually have everything planned out, who they're meeting with, what time frame and all too. That is so important as a key of the first impression of your company. It takes a little bit of time, but once you get your template down, it doesn't have to be difficult, guys. And also to a recruiting plan. So I also ask a lot of my clients, where's your recruiting plan? Well, I want to hire this person, this person. I'm like, that's great. Where's your recruiting plan? And what I'm looking for, it's almost like a budget for recruiting. So you take a full year, all the roles that you want to basically fill within a year, and then you're going to put them into quarters as to what quarter you're going to basically hire that person for. And the nice thing about it, like I said before, you write it down, you see it, it's going to happen in that quarter, and you're going to tie it to it. Now, believe it or not, because of that, sometimes the hiring happens even faster. And so even at year end, you think by December, you're going to have to hire this fourth person. And you might want to have this person in June. You can change all that, but writing down a recruiting strategy is very, very important because you also want to show how much money you're spending and what you want to save for that area, because then benefits take place, PTO, all that's a cost. So you want to make sure that you accrue for your PTO and all too. Okay. HRIS systems and all, we talked about a few of them. And when we're done, we'll basically share a bunch more that we can share with all of you. 401k plans and all too. 401k plans just don't happen overnight, guys, okay? You need a little bit more than that. You're going to have to put a census. The census is basically all your employees, their ages, asking a lot of different questions to figure out what kind of plan you want for your 401k. The majority will go with a safe harbor plan, but I will send you information about what that means, okay? Because it can get very tricky. But like I said, once you have a 401k plan and you're putting in that plan that you're going to pay out so much a year, you have to pay out that much a year, okay? So because especially for like a safe harbor and all too, you have to be very careful because there's certain plan designs you want to make sure that you're following with. So really work with a 401k planner regards to what you want with that. And like Angelique had mentioned, you can change that matching. You can increase it over the years as well too. So just be careful. Don't start too high. Employee wellness plan, that is a hot topic right now. And it's also basically, if you have an EAP system, employee assistance program, it is a cost to a company, but I'm seeing a lot more people using that now. And you want to make sure you have an EA plan that not only covers the individual, but also people in the family, because there's a lot more of mental health happening right now. There's a lot more of just coaching, mental coaching going on, and a lot of EAP programs cover all of that right now. So be careful about that. And then learning and development. People are going to ask, what's our learning and development look like? Do we have a university? Do you want to put one in play? You can definitely do that, but you want to make sure that you're consistent with that and all too. So figuring out what kind of learning you're going to need that first year versus what you'd like to have, because everything costs. Because keep in mind, it takes time away from them doing their job when they're doing learning and development, even though it's helping the company. You just want to make sure that you really figure that out, okay? And then down below, options, outsourcing, independent HR contractor. A lot of HR contractors start here basically around 10 employees. And there are people that you would pay as a 1099 to help you with what you need. Not a big deal. Keep in mind, they usually have 2 or 3 clients at the same time. Yes, great. ADP had free training. Perfect. So that's great. And it all depends upon if that's the right training for you too, because you also need other training usually for lab and all too, which you basically have to outsource or have it your own and have somebody in-house basically managing it for you, okay? Any questions on this one? I love the questions coming through, so I appreciate that. Nope. Okay, we're gonna keep moving then. How are we doing on time? It's 9:14, holy moly. Okay, and all right, next area here. All right, so growth, here we go. And, obviously we got, more than 50 employees here. So anyways, benefits. So you need a strong plan. And I can't stress it enough on all too. You want to talk to other people that have benefit plans and what they're doing. Like I said, we just did a survey of about 8 of our life science clients about what they were doing. I could tell you all of their medical plans were pretty much the same. All of their dental plans were the same. They all have vision plans. A lot of the vision, actually, if you have Independence Blue Cross, it ties back into IBC. What made them different was really more along the lines of their PTO. Their PTO were all over the place, and as well as whether or not they were off between Christmas and New Year's, and whether or not the company paid for short-term and long-term disability, life insurance and all too. If you have a lot of young people on your team, you definitely want to have a really strong short-term disability so that people, like especially your females, feel comfortable going out on maternity leave. You also probably want to offer a voluntary benefit, like we offer AFLAC, that covers basically our short-term disability covers 60%, but so there's 40% that's not covered. If you purchase the AFLAC covers the 40%. So that person goes out, they have 100%. Some companies will pay that entire 100% program for the employee, so when they're out. It all depends about what you want to do and how much money you want to spend for your benefits. And then obviously life insurance. I've seen life insurance all the way from $50,000 all the way to 2.5 times your salary. So it really ranges of what your person wants. I can tell you the 401k is a biggie. The match is a big question people ask out there. It ranges from, I've heard, from 3% to up to 7%. And obviously an EAP program is much more asked now than ever, as well as whether or not, you have benefits for people who are going to the gym and things like that. Look into your deep dive benefits. Like Independence Blue Cross actually has an initiative behind that and gives you money back. But my team, we had to tell my team that because it's a really good program that we have, but you have to sometimes bring the horse to the water to always communicate what the benefits are and how to work with them. I can tell you last year, because of the doctors basically being seen online instead, so you had telemedicine. Most of the people were afraid to use telemedicine. They just didn't know how to use it. So we would actually train a lot of our clients of how to use telemedicine and say it's very simple and very easy. Now you have to teach your team this as well, because it's a program that you have, it's free, and people aren't using it enough. But yet, mental health claims in the past 6 months have increased 40%. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of training on that as well. Okay, options. So you have your options. You have in-house HR support, outsourced HR support, independent contractor, independent recruiter, or recruiting partner. And you just want to make sure you just keep track of your cost. If you do that, you're going to be just fine. But keep in mind, recruiting can get very expensive. So just make sure that you're working with somebody that you trust and that you understand things. Our program is a little different because we charge hourly. So I think it makes it very different out there. We don't have a headcount cost, but you also can hire an independent recruiter too to help you do your work as well. So you got to figure your cost benefit here, guys, because money flies through really fast. All right, next. Development, stage 4. Employees 50 plus, yes, benefits need a strong plan with non-traditional benefits to aid in employee retention. Like I mentioned, the EAP program and your 401k. And, people have pet insurance now, believe it or not. That's a big hot topic. Outsourcing. Now, listen, you don't have to pay for pet insurance, but if you offer it, that's basically an incentive for people to come to your place because you offer it. So that means you're going to get a discount by using it. But it doesn't mean that the employer has to pay anything into it. So you have to keep in mind, you can be very creative of how you offer your voluntary benefits, okay? Outsourcing, best to have in-house by 50 employees. I totally agree with that. But here's the difference. There are HR people that are builders and very strategic, and there are HR people who are very like technicians and are very good with pushing paper and moving things forward and doing on-hiring, onboarding and all too. You have to figure out what kind of person that you want. And if you want a builder and a strategic person and all too, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more money because that's basically that they're good at what they do. Whereas if you want a technician or more like a generalist and all too, and just the back end, that's fine too, but don't expect them to be basically something that they're not. And I've seen that a lot of times too. Like I wish I had this person with more strategy. Sometimes they're just not built that way. And they basically are really good with benefits. They're really good with onboarding. They're really good with all the paperwork. They're good with compliance and all too, They're just not builders. And so be careful what you hire for, and also because there is a difference out there. Okay. Compliance, many things change when you hit 50. 50 is like the magic number on all two. You have FMLA and all two, so medical leave act, meaning that you're supposed to keep that position for a person if that person's been with you for a year or more. There's all these different things that are happening out there. So compliance, employee files, templates, benefits map, payroll provider, handbook, core values, PTO, job description, organizational chart, onboarding, recruiting plan, culture conversations, and performance management systems, talent bench. You have all of these things now in play. So you really want to have a really good system that maintains that, but also good people managing it for you too. Okay, it should not be falling all on the CEO at all. Employee wellness plan, learning and development plans, and then your options are an in-house HR, outsourced HR, independent contractor, independent recruiter. So you have so many different things in play. But that's why we really highly recommend having an HR person working with you from basically like 5 employees or more. Okay. All right, keep moving. Okay, diversity, equity, inclusion. I know we're going to talk about it. It's live, it's hot, it's a topic. What does that mean? Where to start? What does that mean for me? Well, I got to tell you, you got to make sure that your job descriptions include diversity. It can't just be, we have to have special skills in this and this. And not everybody does. So you have to really be thinking more so of not only the pictures that you're showing on your website, but basically how you go about trying to hire diversity, equity, inclusion, and really the training behind it too. So this training should be from day one that, hey, we hire people that are willing to get the job done. And, it's not about race. It's not about the background. It's about getting the work done. So you want to make sure that you start basically from you. You are the CEO. It has to come from you, and you have to be talking from this from day one. And you have to incorporate that too in what you do and how you do and how you are visible out there. And it's funny. People will say, "I'll bring a coach in, and we'll basically do a training, and then we're good." This isn't about a one-time training. This is about weaving it into the fabric of your company. So this is something you're going to have to constantly be working on and making sure that you have it. It's also having maybe like we have 3 different groups on my team. We have a culture club that basically handles all the fun things that we do within the company. We have a TOCU, which is our university that we tie in all these different areas. And we also have basically our Connectors Who Care, which is our philanthropic unit. And we invite so many people to these groups to help us with that. Too, it's not about, making us all look the same and all too. And we do have a variety of different individuals on my team, and we have men and women, and we have different backgrounds and all too. You've got to show a place that basically other people that look different than you, that sound different like you, feel comfortable going to. And whether it's basically creating groups within your team or diversity groups and all too, I think it's really important that you guys remember to do that from day one and tie that into your recruiting plan. And how are we going about all that? I have a really good friend of mine. Her name is Toya Lawson. She is an African-American partner with a company called Bridge Partners too. And they basically do primarily minority recruiting for high-level positions. And I always ask her, what makes it so different? She said, Marsh, people always forget about the fact of where do I find the people? And he goes, be honest with you, sometimes when someone says to me, I need a director of diversity, where do I find them at? Well, I'm going out to the clubs that basically are African American and diverse and basically Asian and all too. I'm going to those groups. I'm understanding what they need and where they're basically members of and all too. So you're going to have to be familiar with all those groups and get more involved in the Philly marketplace in those areas. There's so many initiatives that are going on. You're going to have to be involved with all them because people want to come to like-minded groups. And the companies that have that mission and the companies that really, really understand diversity issues are the ones that are going to win the talent, guys. So incorporating that into your recruiting, into your HR, really stressing the importance behind it and all too is going to be very important from day one. Okay, we have a great follow-up to that, and I'll forward that to you with basically this flyer when we're done today. Okay. Any questions on that? I can't really see. Nope, I think we're good. All right, keep it moving. Okay, so as Megan had mentioned and all too, selecting vendors and all too. So, recruiting firms and all too, like don't spend more than 25% of base for contingent. Want to make sure what kind of types of roles previously worked on. Everybody wants your business. Once they know you have funding and all too, you're going to get calls out the wazoo. And you want to make sure that you trust the people that you're working for and all too, because if not, it's a lot of money that's going basically out the door. Okay, so ask a lot of people who they work with, call that person up. What was your experience with them and all too? I think it's really helpful. And then, you know what? All of us here have to be very honest with each other. You gotta say, was it good? Was it bad? And be honest with it, because if not, we're just wasting each other's time. Okay. Payroll too. Does it tie into the HRIS system? I have a client that has a system for payroll, a system for HRIS, a system basically for the GL, another system over here. I'm like, why are you doing that? And like, we didn't know that this system actually could tie in. I said, oh my God, you have Paylocity and you have Jazz HR. I'm like, well, why? You're spending all that money. They didn't know. They didn't know to ask the question. And so they got sold on all these programs. And I said, try to get out of this, get onto this, because this is going to be your 2-for-1 here. And so you have to be really careful about that. Does it have great customer service? And that too. A lot of them don't. They do a great job selling, but when it comes down to the heavy duty customer service, they're horrible. So be very careful about that, because you're going to need them. Do new employees get forms electronically? Make sure it does work. Does it tie into the general ledger system? That's going to help you. It's going to help your CFO. So these are the things you have to think about and not too. So go with such a robust system that you will not utilize yet. Right. Benefits. Does your broker understand where you are now and where you are going? It does. It's not illegal to change your benefit brokers. So many people start with an employee or a benefit broker, and they're like, well, we've been with them for 3 years. I'm like, just the way you said that, I can tell that you're not even happy with them, and they haven't responded to you, and they haven't given you training. They haven't checked in with you. Why are you staying with them? They're like, well, it's hard. I'm like, it's not hard anymore. Okay. It's really easy to try to find a new broker out there, because the new ones want your business and will do anything to keep you and all too, because it's so competitive. So make sure it's okay to change your broker. It really is. It's a little bit of work. It is. But keep in mind, they do majority of that work on the back end. So don't be afraid to change to a new broker. HRIS systems and all too. So you got to be careful. Do you need that training and development? Do you need CGMP to make sure that your people are trained on all too? Make sure that system has that in there to keep track of all that training for you too. That's only going to help you the larger you become. Virtual assistant. There are a lot of virtual assistant groups out there right now. I have one, and she's great. I use her for like 20 hours a week. She's out South Carolina, but she's amazing. And you got to figure out how many hours you can choose. It's an expense. It's a write-off on all too, but somebody that you can really trust to do a lot of that stuff, you'd be surprised at how much they can do, because they are trained to do that kind of work. Okay, so things to think about of what you need. Okay. Oh, good. And Bernie's giving you some good ideas down there too. So thank you, Bernie. I appreciate that. Okay, Megan, next. And vendors. So here's some of the vendors that we recommend, only because we have experience with them. There are so many more out there, and so just keep that in mind, like Bamboo HR, Cornerstone, Paylocity, Premier, Paychecks. There's a lot of them that are out there. There's a reason why I didn't put ADP on here, to be honest with you, but ADP has that good PEO system out there too, but just their customer service is probably a little weak. Oh, awesome. Yes, Lechner and Stoffner, I've worked with Dave before as well. He's a really good guy. He's also, if you need your P&C, property and casualty insurance, he definitely does a nice job of that. There are a few groups out there that do that, but make sure that my guys, I can actually send him all my contracts, and for free, he reviews all my contracts on all too, to make sure that we are on board with everything and that I'm getting what I need. Because sometimes people will sell you everything. Just make sure that these contracts go through like your PNC and all too, to make sure that you have the proper insurance for it, because that's a biggie, and people have gotten stuck with that and all too. So just be careful. Benefits, these are just two groups that I know do a lot of work in life sciences. There are so many others out there, but they just have really good customer service. HRIS systems and all too, which is Human Resource Information System. Bamboo HR, Gusto, Paylocity, ADP. There's a lot of them. Just make sure you do due diligence and all too behind all that, and ask people what they like about them, what they don't like about them, and how do they evolve with you the larger you become. So they should be able to handle from 5 to up to like 5,000, 10,000 people. Okay. and also Delegate Solutions Assist Pro. So those are two virtual assistance groups that, well, Delegate is actually in Philadelphia. Assist Pro is based out of South Carolina, but there's so many that are out there. Just make sure you trust the ones on all two. And in the long run, it's actually very reasonably priced to do that. So just to help you out with that, okay? And I think that's the main presentation, right? 9:29. Oh, 1 minute to go, Mark. All right, so here's questions and answers, just to let you know, even before an organization becomes reality, do you think the founder should consider HR as a factor? You know, investors are not only interested in technology, yada, yada. I think HR should be very much in the beginning. Like when we did this with community, like I mentioned before, I was number 3. And I think they tell me all the time, like, you know, look how far we've come, Marsh, you know, with your guys' help and all too. And we just had fun doing it. So I definitely think it should be from the ground floor. All right, next page. And then obviously Q&A continued and all too. And a startup organization, who typically is responsible for the HR role? You know, to be honest with you, it's really the CEO that has the main thing behind it and all too. But you have to keep in mind, finding a partner is really going to help you with all that. And then very bottom, at the stage of the organization, what are the typical issues or common questions? Compliance, attracting senior team talent, comp benefits, equity value, all those things should basically be figuring out ahead of time, especially the equity piece and all too. So make sure that you're working with somebody who can help you with answering all that, because again, once you state it, it's hard to take that. You can't take it back. So you want to make sure that you have it very clearly stated of how that looks. Okay. I'm seeing more questions down here. So share the chat notes, which is easy. I'm sure Mark can do that. And then Bernie has some really good stuff, talent and education. Yes, interns. Also campusphilly.com also can provide interns for you too. They do a really nice job as well for your interns. So something to think about, and which is really nice. Campus Philly. Yep. Okay. Any other questions out there? I've got 9:31. Trying to be respectful of time here, Mark.
Okay. Well, we started a little bit late, so you know, that's not a problem. This very energetic discussion this morning. You know, I think I'm smiling a little bit because being born in the Boston area, I never thought anybody could speak faster than a Bostonian. And Marcia, you won. Okay, so I don't know if you have any ties to Boston, but you're now at least you're a Bostonian by adoption, I guess. So congratulations there. What I'd like to do is I was taking some notes. I think Gary sent a question about slides. We are recording this and we're building a resource page where this recording will be archived for you to see. That's not quite up and running yet, but because of the slides and the interest in your taking notes, my suggestion, if it's okay, Megan, can anybody reach out to you directly and you can get them a copy of this slide deck rather than Ben? I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also love to be able to send out things that weren't included in this, like articles, and just there's some really good diversity articles that McKinsey put out. So I wanted to include that too. So I have lots of good follow-up information I can share.
Okay. So you know, you have Marcia's email there. I think finding Megan, you're easy to find on the O'Connor group as well. So all those that do want a slide, the slides, you can contact Megan. And then Nicole just suggested that Ben can follow up because we have all the attendees. We can follow up with a reminder email as well. So you know, so you can certainly get this information. There was an interesting idea about, because this topic, a lot of people are some are probably more novices. Many of you are more expert, and so the thought about getting together as a group and maybe sharing ideas and learning from each other. I'd like to follow up, you know, offline with Marcia and Megan, see how we might do a follow-up group meeting where it's a little bit more free-flowing discussion rather than tutorial, because I think that was an interesting concept. I just wanted to wrap up by saying thank you very much for everybody's participation today. Good luck shoveling out of your driveway or your sidewalk, whatever, just being a nasty day. If you do have any questions or comments, please feel free to send them to myself or Kate directly, or reach out, you know, alternatively to Marcia or Megan. So thank you so much. It was great to see some of your faces today, and look forward to our next webinar. The topic is evolving, but we'll keep you posted. Thanks to everybody for taking the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Marcia, Megan. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Welcome, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, guys.
Aye.